Ladies and gentlemen, I have an amazing story for you. The other day, I came across this Daily Mail post on X. Female tycoon is private jet-crazed power lesbian who mocked male employee for being old, say ex-colleagues. When I first saw this, I said, this sounds incredible. I gotta dive deeper. We're gonna have a fun one today. This is Jess Mah in an interview talking about what she does.
And what are you doing at Mawe?
Yeah, Mawe, we are building companies. So a lot of people think we're investors, but we actually primarily start companies from scratch. Stuff that touches AI and data science, of course, because everyone's doing that. But
her name is Jess Mah. She's really well known. This is from her website. She launched her first six-figure business in middle school. She's been on the founding team of 10 plus companies collectively valued at over $1 billion. She currently serves on 5 boards. So she's got a pretty impressive portfolio, and she was the youngest woman accepted in a Y Combinator in 2010. I think she's pretty well respected in the VC space, pretty well known. And so that's why this story is really interesting. Here she is on the My First Million podcast.
And you said that in the last 4 years, you've started 4 companies, each worth over $100 million.
I've co-founded companies. And when I say co-found, sometimes I didn't do a whole lot. Maybe I helped with the idea. I got the early team on board. I got some early funding. And then on some of them, I'm still really active. And on some of them, I'm not active. And I'm just like a significant shareholder.
That is on her private jet, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. But as you can see, this is a very successful entrepreneur worth a lot of money. The first big company to make it was called InDinero. Here is an article from TechCrunch, September 1st, 2010. 20-year-old founder Jess Mah gets $1 million put in a banking startup InDinero. Of note in this article is down at the very bottom, perhaps the closest we've got to a female, Mark Zuckerberg. Pretty high praise. So you can see someone who has been in the news for quite a while, 15 years. She's very well known. And today we're going to discuss all of the litigation. There was a lot of drama, and I'm here to uncover it all. So we're going to first begin February 2nd, 2021. A company called 290 Beowawe LLC sued her company InDinero. The first page of the complaint shows that Jess Mah and Andy Su were both defendants. They are business partners in InDinero. So we're going to first start paragraph 12. Plaintiffs allege that the defendants were used as subterfuges for illegal, fraudulent, and or otherwise wrongful transactions, to wit, for the purpose of converting and or misappropriating funds belonging to defendant InDinero for the personal use of the defendants. That is a very strong claim, my friends. Paragraph 14 highlights that InDinero bought this company. They acquired him temp CFO, and they were going to pay plaintiff $6.3 million over the following 5 years from February 2018 to February 2023. This case is all about money not being transferred. Plaintiff believes that the defendants misappropriated funds totaling $1.9 million from the company's bank account for personal use, stripping defendant of much needed working capital and cash needed to fund obligations owed to plaintiff, particularly the $925,000 payment due February 12, 2020. Basically, what they're alleging is because you took this money and we're alleging that you took it for personal use, that made the company less solvent. And because you weren't able to keep up cash flow, you weren't able to make the payment owed to me. If I was owed $925,000 as well, I'd throw up a little bit of a stink, and I definitely would file a complaint. This paragraph is really damning. On February 13th, 2020, the plaintiff met with defendant Jess Mah at Beverly Hills Hotel and basically confronted her with evidence of her fraudulent conduct. In response, she admitted to engaging in fraudulent conduct relative to the financial affairs of the company, stating, "This will ruin my career." She then admitted that the transactional documents allegedly evidencing the supposed $700,000 equity from another fund were fabricated. Earlier in the complaint, bunch of details, I'll condense it for you. Basically, she needed some equity funding. She went to this fund and was able to allegedly raise the money, showing that her company was in good health and she would be able to make the payments to the plaintiff. And it looks like they were fabricated according to this paragraph. Plaintiff further alleges that the defendant, Andy Su, admitted to plaintiff that a portion of the $1.9 million from the defendant was used to repurchase common stock he held in the company. Apparently, he knew or should have known that the defendant InDinero was insolvent. So at this time in 2020, just 5 years ago, apparently it's alleged that InDinero, this big successful company now worth hundreds of millions of dollars, was insolvent. When challenged on the propriety of this transaction, the defendant, Andy Su, stated that he could not return the money as it had been used to fund his new venture, defendant Pry Financials, Inc. Hey man, that wasn't your money, but apparently he thought it was. But he's not alone. It's alleged that defendant Jess Mah formed a new company called Employees First Advocates LLC just a couple months later, infusing startup capital of $250,000 from the $1.9 million misappropriated from defendant InDinero, Inc. back on December 30, 2019. So it sounds like they weren't paying the plaintiff what he was owed. He's alleging that they took the money to start up other ventures. The plaintiff claims damages of $2.3 million. I don't know how this case ended up as it was filed 4 years ago, but that's a pretty big claim and it sounds like they had a pretty good case. Notice the date on lawsuit number 2, May 14th, 2025. Jess got sued by D Global Ventures Fund. The first sentence of this complaint comes in pretty hot. This dispute involves investment fraud and a criminal scheme that Jess Mah was running through her companies. You could tell that this plaintiff is pretty upset. Paragraph 2, founded Maway in March 2023 as a technology investment fund. I think she had a little success at this point and was looking to raise a bunch of money and started her own fund. She claims herself as a unicorn breeder in VC world. It's a colloquial way of claiming that she is responsible for the development of unique, wildly successful technology companies. Here's another strong statement. In reality, Mah is a charlatan living on investors' funds intended for Maway's portfolio of startup companies, the majority of which are only unicorns in the sense that they're also imaginary. This is about to get juicy. Mah instead brazenly misappropriated the money to fund her lavish Los Angeles-based lifestyle. A lifestyle included private jets and drivers, New Year's Eve parties, paying for her personal residence with company funds, and most egregiously spending nearly $1 million of the company's fund to purchase a private jet. If what he's saying is true, it's a pretty damning allegation. As one Maway employee has reported, Jess runs her entire life expenses through Maway. I don't think that's allowed when you're raising money. So the plaintiff apparently had access to Mah's internal documents. February 2025, Mah had taken millions in fees. That is how you afford a private jet, my friends, even though the Maway's portfolio company investments were underperforming. Isn't this how all funds work, right? Even real estate funds? You just raise a bunch of money, you take money off the fees, and it doesn't matter how the companies are performing. Those fees were millions of dollars more than Mah was entitled to under the relevant agreements. They further allege that by Mah taking this money for personal use, that she is not investing in the company in the best way possible. She raised money, and the fund that she raised money from is alleging that, hey, you should have done a better job at using the money to invest in the company so that we could grow that company and we could have a better return. Another allegation is that Mah's intimidated senior officers at the company to approve improper financial transfers and terminated senior employees for not being complicit in her unethical and illegal behavior. This was a pretty long complaint, but that is the best summary that I could come up with. This plaintiff is very upset at Jess, but I have something for you. Guess what comes next? On the same day, May 14th, 2025, Jess sued a guy named Justin Caldbeck. A few years ago, The Guardian wrote an article, Tech Investor Admits Sexually Harassing Female Entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. Justin Caldbeck guy took a leave of absence from his firm after 6 women accused him of making unwanted advances, often in context of potential business deals. This article basically went on to say that Justin Caldbeck had 6 different victims claim that he was using this power that he had. He was raising money and he would invest in your fund, but sounds like he wanted a little something on top of the investment in the fund. And so he was using that to his advantage to possibly make unwanted advances towards these women. Now, why is that relevant? Because it comes in with Jess Mah's lawsuit. She's suing for extortion, sexual harassment, and defamation, among other claims. And this is where, my friends, this is where I started to get really interested in this story. She comes in hot. Defendant Justin Caldbeck is a predator, a sexual predator. He is a financial predator. She goes on to claim all the reasons why he's a bad dude. These are obviously her words. 2022, Mr. Caldbeck's fund, D Global Ventures. Remember, just a second ago, that was the company that sued her. So he is the main investor of D Global Ventures. So they sued her. Jess returns the suit on the same day. They invest in high-risk, high-return technology and venture business and funds. It is well known that there's no guarantee for a return, and liquidity events may not occur for 10 years or even longer. So basically in this complaint, Jess is saying he knows what he signed up for when he invested in my fund. She goes into pretty good detail about their interactions together. They obviously had a professional relationship because she was able to raise $500,000 from his fund. But paragraph 26 states Mr. Caldbeck is by his own admission a serial sexual harasser. Apparently, he might have had some misconduct during his tenure at Bain Capital and Lightspeed Venture Partners. At Lightspeed, this behavior apparently cost him his job. Apparently, he claimed that he would take steps to reflect on his own behavior with an attitude towards women. He's married with children, sought to again abuse his position by coercing Miss Mah into a sexual relationship. According to her, they met up at a hotel one evening, June 16, 2022, and he made unwanted advances. I won't go into detail. This is the he said, she said of these types of situations. Who knows what actually happens? Obviously, only 2 people do. But she claims that he made unwanted advances, and given his past, there's reason to believe that what she's saying is truthful. She seems to indicate that he made unwanted advances and basically indicated that he was interested in progressing their friendship. She repeatedly said, no, dude, you're married. This is not appropriate, nor am I interested. And he routinely made inappropriate sexualized comments, including unsolicited disclosures concerning his ongoing sexual relationships with other women. This was apparently very off-putting to Jess. As the complaint progresses, she indicates that he became a little unhinged, began barraging her with threatening emails, calls, and text messages. He accused Miss Mah of misleading all of their investors. And then he contacted former employees to dig up embarrassing information about her. So she didn't want an unhappy investor. They got on a Zoom call with lawyers present, and he threatened Miss Mah, telling her, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to bankrupt you. Unfortunately, the call ended without any resolution. Here's an important element of this case. On paragraph 38, Miss Mah offered to repurchase D Global Ventures units at their original purchase price plus a premium. Unsatisfied, called Beck, countered with a demand for $1.5 million. That would be 3 times his initial investment. I would love to see proof of this. This would nullify a lot of his claims, because if she was willing to give back his investment plus a little bit for the time and energy that he put into it, in my opinion, it seems like she was willing to satisfy his demands. Apparently, that wasn't enough for him, because he then told another investor that Miss Mah has a pattern and history of embezzlement, including embezzling $1 million to pay for a private plane. Sounds like he was upset that she was living a very expensive lifestyle, while he believed that his investment was not taken care of, that $500,000 was not working as well as he had hoped. Jess is alleging that Justin defamed her to at least 10 investors and non-investors, some of whom have distanced themselves from one of the funds because of the defamatory statements. This is one of the major claims of this complaint, is that he's been defaming her. The next day, Jess decides to sue a man named Walter Delf. I was able to find his bio on a website. It looks like he's a venture partner. It sounds like he has many years of experience in this field, and he was a pretty high profile hire. But with 8 different claims in this complaint, Jess Mah sounds pretty upset with Walter. She hired Walter as a consultant with the title of president in February 2024. He was paid on a project by project basis. And apparently by the end of 2024, he transitioned to full-time employee status with a base salary of $350,000 per year. Jess claims that Mr. Delf's tenure at Maui was marred by his repeated dishonesty. Not long after he began working at Maui, he had not raised any concerns about his compensation during the hiring process, but he began complaining to other employees that he was really undercompensated and criticized the company for not having given him more equity. In August of 2024, just about 6 months after starting at Maui, he called Jess and said, hey, I want a bonus of $175,000, close to half of his yearly on-target earnings. And the funny thing is, Jess alleges because he failed to properly budget his personal finances and would be unable to pay for his children's private school tuition without an immediate cash infusion. If that's true, it's kind of a hilarious, but also a super LA thing. I could not imagine having kids spending $175,000, assuming he's not asking for a sports car as well. But if private school tuition is costing that much, that is insane. Throughout the complaint, Jess says it just wasn't working out. And at first, the separation was amicable. They did not want to keep paying Mr. Delf what he wanted and thought he deserved. So they met in person and had a really good meeting about his departure. They even exchanged a hug. A few months after that, though, Walter seems to have been contacted by Justin Caldbeck. Justin wanted to shake down Miss Mah, and it looks like they formed a little team. In this little team setup, it sounds like Mr. Caldbeck gained information that was private and then used that information to defame Miss Mah to at least 10 investors and non-investors, some of whom have distanced themselves from the fund because of the defamatory statements. Jess then alleges that in exchange for Mr. Delf's assistance, Justin Caldbeck agreed that he would also try to shake down Miss Mah for some money. Notice the dates. On that same day, May 15th, 2025, just a couple months ago, Walter filed a lawsuit against Jess. Whistleblower retaliation, wrongful termination, violation of labor code, amongst a few other claims. This, my friends, is where the drama really kicks in. Walter claims that he dutifully served the interests of Maui while he was employed there, despite the hostile work environment that Mah created by engaging in bizarre sexual conduct in the workplace and discriminating against him based on his age. He also claims that shortly into his tenure, he discovered that Jess was engaged in a number of illegal acts, including but not limited to illegally taking millions of dollars of their investor funds to finance her extravagant personal lifestyle. Seems to be a common complaint amongst the plaintiffs, and directing Maui to pay exorbitant consultant fees to shell companies that Mah owned for work never performed. Then he claims that he confronted Jess about her theft, strong word choice, and insisted that she stop stealing from the company. Defendant summarily terminated his employment and attempted to withhold his final wages owed to him, stated that she had paid him enough.
Yeah, the integration of work and personal, I think, is really important because that helps you bring in more of the people that I want to attract, and it also repels the people who I want to deflect away. So people who are too formal and traditional in how they operate, they're going to get uncomfortable by this, which is perfect. I want that.
Now it's time to get a little personal. The plaintiff alleges that Mah insisted that employees worked out of her personal home in West Hollywood. She would regularly hosted non-employee friends socially at her home during the workday, the same place that she demanded that her employees work on a daily basis. Many of these non-employee friends were Mah's sexual partners. During working hours, Mah would routinely describe her sexual relationships in explicit terms to plaintiff and other Mawai employees, and her sexual partners would roam the premises, again Mawai's only workplace, in various stages of undress. He also claims that there was empty alcohol bottles and drug paraphernalia, left the premises in utter disarray most of the time. He even claims it was like a party house and not a workplace. You guys remember the first slide about her being a power lesbian, which I find absolutely hilarious. She has a fiance, and apparently this Andrea Barica girl has a boyfriend, so I don't think it to be true, but it just sounds really funny. That needs to be the name of a band right now. But anyway, Mah also singled out one Mawai employee for preferential treatment based on a sexual relationship that she flaunted to all employees of the company. This girl, Andrea Barica, apparently fondled each other during company meetings in full view of plaintiff and other employees on multiple occasions. This guy says it was impossible to avoid seeing these sexual activities. She would rub her inner thighs as Mah addressed an entire group during a meeting and vice versa. This sounds utterly ridiculous. If true, that is kind of hilarious, but also entirely inappropriate. On this same day, May 15th, there's already 2 complaints, and the day before there was 2 complaints. Now we have William Mulholland suing Jess. This complaint is a little shorter. It's a bit repetitive with Delph's complaint. Wrongful termination, whistleblower, retaliation, and unfair competition. So this plaintiff is a seasoned finance executive, having served as a CFO for multiple startup and established companies over the last 13 years. He comes in hot as well. The one company that Mah helmed that actually continued is now a debt-ridden fiasco for its investors. Keep in mind that this is the big company that she talks about as being the big success story for her. Mah relentlessly touts this company, InDinero, as a large-scale success for investors when the opposite is true. Despite being sued for financial misconduct, similar to the conduct at issue in this case, Mah projects a false image of success through deceptive social media branding and incessant self-promotion. This plaintiff was hired to be Mawai's chief financial officer in April 2024. He did not like the systems they were using though. Mawai did not have any documentation for any of its transactions. The way he states, it was a mess, a complete mess. This paragraph, to summarize, it was a complete mess. There was an unenviable task of reconciling their bank statements, which were hopelessly mismatched. Financial records were in total disarray due to Mah's gross mismanagement. Just 5 days later, on May 20th, 2025, Jess filed a lawsuit against William Mulholland, firing right back at him. Jess is basically alleging that he voluntarily resigned from the company, and right before that, he decided to conspire with Justin Caldbeck, a disgruntled investor and serial sexual harasser. Jess basically saying that these 3 people are coming together to defame her. She's alleging that as CFO, Mr. Mulholland decided to tilt the playing field in favor of Mr. Caldbeck's campaign. On information belief, he stole confidential Mawai documents, including by screenshotting messages from Mawai's internal messaging system and downloading invoices from their databases. Jess apparently was confused because despite having approved every single Mawai expense for over a year without raising any concerns, Mr. Mulholland sent an email describing various of these expenses he himself approved. He then said they were inappropriate. This is basically, in summary, the most important statement. Starting while he was still employed as the CFO and continuing to the present, Mr. Mulholland has conspired with Mr. Caldbeck and Mr. Delph to fabricate baseless allegations to extort, harass, defame, and humiliate Jess. Basically, what happened is she's alleging that they combined together to extort her. Hey, pay us money and we won't sue you, or we will walk away without alleging any of these things. She's claiming that it's all false. We'll bring it back to the beginning. Female tycoon is private jet-crazed power lesbian. What do you guys think? The truth about civil complaints is that you can throw out any allegations, and I wanted to share all of the complaints with you because who knows what is true and what is false. My mind shifted completely about lawsuits once I realized that you can throw anything into a complaint. Doesn't mean it's true. You don't even have to be held to perjury standards by lying in a complaint. So I wanted to show both sides of this because I wasn't there. Obviously, I'm not involved. I didn't contact either of the parties here because I'm sure they would say everything in the complaint is true. You have to believe me, bro. But this is a fascinating story. I'd love to see it play out. This is just a couple months into the lawsuit process, and so we haven't reached discovery. This is going to be a fascinating story to uncover. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching.